Convener touched on some of this earlier, but I want to actually think about the physical environments of prison settings and secure accommodation. If I was someone looking in on this today who was concerned that, from their perspective, instead of going to Young Offenders Institute, you go to secure accommodation, it's a soft option. I don't believe that view. I've visited Rossie, I've been through the secure unit. But there will be people who will think that this is a soft option. So can you outline, for the benefit of anyone in that situation, what's so inappropriate about the physical prison setting for young people who've committed serious offences, and what is it about the secure accommodation setting that does clearly deprive of the liberty, but is a secure setting and also appropriate?
There's a very clinical nature in setting and environment, and all the prison service have done a lot of work with that over the years, to as much as the sensory aspect of noise and keys and things like that add to a lot of the current needs and complexity of needs that young people who come to secure care. If I come to insecure care, the environment is significantly more therapeutic in nature, and by virtue of that, you're talking about even just size of the area. You know, primarily they are either 4 or 6 bedded houses that have individualised rooms, en suites. They will be separated in corridors, sharing with not sharing a room but sharing a corridor. Direct access to a living room, games room, dining rooms, and then obviously have access to a whole suite of activities. A number of our colleagues, we've got swimming pools, secure gardens, but notwithstanding that, resources and staffing resources, the staffing ratio is almost in 1 to 2, and to achieve that within a prison setting is almost impossible in terms of resource implications. So on that very basis, you've got that therapeutic intervention work that can go in, that relational based work that, as the trauma informed approaches, as the relational work, and then of course you can achieve, in our view, quicker and outcomes for young people.
So we try and soften it in terms of the fashion and fabric of some of the furnishings that we put into, etc. But prisons are massive. Polmont has a design capacity of 810. So if any of you have visited, then prisons are rather large, busy, noisy places, sir.
Yeah. Being
with young people of their own age group in a much more smaller living conditions, with a much more trauma-informed approach, I think is absolutely the right thing to do, sir.
And how secure is secure accommodation from the perspective of the public?
We have a very, very good track record of keeping children and young people safe, and we have high levels of security which meet the standards that are required. And
can I get your views on the definition of a child being 18, given your experience of dealing with that cohort? Laura, do you want to go first?
Thanks. So, from our experience, the definition of a child is in line with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, that a child is 18, although we know that the Children's Commissioner, for example, supports care experienced people up to the age of 21, and we know that our legislation supports care experienced people up to the age of 26, in line with brain development. So I think that answers your question.
I think it's really important to be clear that we've had some discussion about we're now treating 16 and 17-year-olds as children. I think we've heard that in the previous discussions at committee, but actually 16 and 17-year-olds aren't suddenly children. They've always been children. We ratified the UNCRC in 1991, and the first article of that is that a child is up to the age of 18. What we're doing here with this bill and with the processes to help keep the promise is to bring the law in line with what's agreed and established since we ratified the UNCRC.
Given that this is, as we've just heard, about changing the approach to 16, 17-year-olds, is there not an argument for introducing elements of restorative justice into the children's hearing system as well, beyond this bill?
I agree. The promulgation of restorative justice services in the children's hearing system, as well as in the criminal justice system, is something to be promoted, in my view.
Okay. The other witnesses?
And actually what I would say is that the young people who've caused harm also often want that opportunity to be able to make amends in a way that is not retribution, but actually promotes the restoration of relationships, because they are fundamentally often people in their communities. They're people that they are interacting with, and there are knock-ons from that lack of ability to restore relationships that we certainly would be strongly advocating for restorative justice processes within the children's hearing system.
Okay.
Two key things around this. One of them is making sure that children who have been harmed or victims are free to choose, and their choice is paramount about whether or not they want to be involved in this. But also I think it's important, as you will have heard from previous sessions to this committee, that at the moment the lack of information sharing would make that whole process pretty much impossible, I would suggest, because people who have been harmed by children or young people do not get any information about that case, if you like, at all at the moment. So it's hard to see how that could work without significant change.
Yeah, but you would welcome such change, obviously.
Some we work with some young victims who actively are asking for a restorative justice approach. As long as it's about their free choice and it's a victim-centred approach to restorative justice.